Welcome to the Cross Border Logistics Summit. I'm Thomas Wasson. I'm super excited to be welcoming for the keynote address. We're going to be talking about security, especially as there's a lot of cross border moves. There's a lot of places where fraudsters can potentially steal your stuff, and one of those being yards. And that's a huge, huge security thing to talk about. So we're excited to be welcoming on Mike Grabovica. He's the CEO of Birdseye Security Solutions. He's been in the biz for a minute. We're going to pick his brain about what are some of these challenges and what we should be aware of as not only cross border activity is heating up, but so are the efforts of fraudsters. And so, Mike, absolute pleasure to have you on. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, Thomas.
So let's dive in a little bit about your backstory. Let's get some lore knocked out. Tell us about your experience, and then we're going to go into what you all are working on and what you're especially seeing.
So my background, I've been a bit of a nerd for decades. I always loved technology. I loved using technology to solve real world problems and logistics, supply chain, full of problems from challenges enforcing operational protocols, challenges with safety and compliance, challenges with security. So I found it a great place to deploy different types of technology to provide more oversight, more control to our end users, our customers. So I've kind of done that my whole life. Always found it really exciting. Technology is moving extremely rapidly, so there's a lot of challenges with that, but there's also a ton of opportunities. So yeah, I love the space and been in it for decades.
So let's talk about kind of the history and then where we're at, especially for these yards and yard management. It really felt like back in the day, I've been told you just kind of inputted a gate code, you waved at a security guard, or some people don't even have gates. Tell us kind of what's the what are we looking at, and then we'll dive into how there's a lot of vulnerabilities.
Well, a lot of companies are still doing it that way, believe it or not. They do things the way that they always uh, done them in the past. So, there's that saying, it's not the species that were the strongest that survived, it was those that were the most adaptable. And it's no different in trucking. I think that a lot of carriers have done a fantastic job adapting with the times in a lot of different areas, and some still do it the way they used to do it. And there's a lot of different reasons why that is. Sometimes they're budget constrained. Tariffs haven't helped, so a lot of folks are feeling the pain. But certainly, crime specifically has escalated significantly. We've seen double-digit growth for 15 years straight, as long as I've been serving the transportation logistics industry. And some carriers have done a fantastic job, once again, in mitigating that risk while also simultaneously reducing costs and improving their operations in a lot of different ways. So some still do it the old-fashioned way. Some have adapted really well. Most are kind of in the middle, and we try to help them as much as they're willing to be helped.
And let's dive into what, especially if I'm thinking of cross border shipments and the yards and security, what are some of these big vulnerabilities that you all are currently seeing, especially as we are seeing fraudsters and bad actors really stepping up their game?
What's really challenging is if you send a load across the border, maybe your facility is really well secured, but maybe the facility that it's going to across the border may not have the same level of oversight that you might want to have. So that's a huge challenge. Once it's out of your possession, it's kind of like a teenager. Once they leave your house, you've done what you could. Now they're on their own, right? So I think that's a huge challenge when you're uh, when you're shipping across the border, is just standardizing uh, the um, the oversight expectations. So PIP and CTPAT try to do the best they can to get a lot of members on board and kind of level the playing field and the expectations. So that way, if I'm doing business with Thomas Transport and he's a member of the association and I am as well, we kind of have the both of us have to be up to the same bar and have to have the same level of oversight. And then it's easier for us to do business with each other. So I know that the industry is extremely competitive, but it does tend to get together and come together to resolve big problems. And I think that security is one of those where us working closer together and sharing our expectations it could really help. So that way things will move safer from my yard to yours and so on and so forth.
That was one of the big things, CTPAT and a few other certifications, because especially with tariffs, inventory levels, there's a lot of bigger picture things that are impacting it. I can only imagine with all the talk of tariffs, it could be very valuable to try to get into some of this cargo because it may actually be worth more now based on the tariff rate and stuff like that. Talk about how that has kind of changed. Is there a lot more cargo risk at these logistics facilities because of that, or just dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wild year for everyone, and certainly there has been a trend of inventory buildup because folks just wouldn't know what to expect. Is there a new policy that's going to be announced tomorrow or next week? So as there's more inventory buildup, that becomes obviously a bigger target, and a lot of facilities aren't equipped to handle that level of risk, and their security protocols may not have adapted with that increase of risk. So that's been both a challenge for carriers, but it's also a huge opportunity for thieves. So they are taking advantage of this and exploiting weaker secured facilities and getting away with it. So we've seen tremendous growth year over year in theft and criminal activity.
And you brought up a great point earlier about how, especially with cross border moves, there's a lot more movements between various facilities, warehousing, holdings, transshipping, terminals, each of them having different levels. Are there, especially once it gets into the US market, is there any kind of unique security challenges that you are seeing that folks may need to be aware of?
I think what's a little bit different in the US is um, Uh, and what's really amazing about the US is how much appetite there is for growth and how much ambition there is. And the market reacts very quickly, sometimes overreacts. So I would, what's typical is that if there's any sign of optimism, you really see logistics companies leaning in and wanting to take advantage of it. And sometimes that's preemptive, and sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction because if you had a prolonged recession like you have right now, and there's an opportunity, you kind of go for it. And that ambition is really beautiful. It's really amazing, but it also, you can trip on yourself really quickly if you're not adequately streamlining your operation security protocols to accommodate whatever it is that you're going to lean into. So. Um, Whereas, for example, in Canada, it's folks tend to be a lot more conservative, and they certainly do lean in when there are opportunities, but they are significantly more conservative, and they tend to wait around, tend to be a lot more reactive, and look for significantly more security before making decisions. So they want a ton of data before leaning forward. So I'd say that that's in between Canada and US. That's just a different kind of ideology around how you apply your thinking towards business growth.
So it's kind of like the US is more willing to be early adopters in technology. I'm more willing to try this out. Here's some new AI, here's some new tech. While like Canada and depending upon the country, they're like, well, I don't know. I want to see a bunch of other people use it. I've used my system forever. So there is kind of a unique entrepreneurial mindset in the US where it's quick to early adopt compared to some of these other folks.
Absolutely, for sure. And that's why the GDP in the US has been outpacing Canada and many other places in the world for that because of that spirit. And it's nice to see. It's great. We've seen significant growth for us as a company in the US compared to Canada because they tend to make decisions quicker. They tend to lean in more. Sometimes they can trip themselves over it, where they would take on the loads, take on the sales growth, but they won't put all the operational uh, protocols in place ahead of time. So we do often see folks get ahead of themselves and taking the risk, taking that chance. So we always encourage everyone just to plan for the road, and success is when preparation meets an opportunity, and that's one thing that we do see a lot in Canada, where people prepare and over prepare and overthink, and you know so that's also not good either, right? So you got to find that nice. You got to strike that balance between, hey, let's prepare, but when an opportunity comes in, we prepare just enough so that we can handle the volume.
And let's talk about technology and being prepared. One of the fascinating things is the role that it's playing. We've got different types of gate entries, you got yard management systems, the whole shebang. Is it something where when you're talking with folks who are like, yeah, I know my security sucks, I had a shipment stolen. What kind of the big first thing? Is it operationally where I got like a gate guard who's just not doing his job, or do I need to get like more cameras? How do you kind of when we're starting to look at that security element, is it a balance, or should I just start getting like a bunch of AI powered cameras and sprinkle them around and see if that's like the low hanging fruit?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Thomas. So um, let's start with the kind of the budget. Like, budget's extremely important for everyone, right? So if you buy security cameras strictly for security, you're leaving a lot of value on the table. So we think that security is a byproduct of a well-run operation. So if you use cameras and technology to enforce protocols, and if everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, everything that deviates outside of that protocol becomes a security threat. So yes, you can get a bunch of cameras, you can spend a ton of money on that, but then you got to service them, you got to maintain them, and if you're only using them to reactively investigate what happened in the past, then you're not getting true value out of it. If you're operating that technology in real time, getting meaningful data, then you can use that to control your costs better and to make better informed business decisions. So I think that security is just one of the slices of the overall picture. It shouldn't be looked at as a silo and planned for accordingly. You got to think about kind of safety and compliance, operations, security as one. And I think that great carriers, they get that, and they continue to get significantly more value out of the technology that they deploy. Whereas some think of it as a silo, uh, and it should be a segregated function. So then they'll think that, to your point, I'll just install a bunch of cameras and maybe I'll get a security guard. And in their defense, also, they may not have the time. They may not have the know-how of how to put all of that together and how they can use it more as a tool to lower their risk, attract higher value loads because of the way that they now manage risk, and how they can potentially have some talking points and some leverage over their insurance companies, how they can maximize their loss prevention credits using this. So, um, yeah, it really depends. Some organizations, and there's far and few between, they have entire efficiency departments. That's all they do. So they'll say, okay, what are the, top 20 problems that we have? And then they'll go to market and try to find a comprehensive solution that kind of addresses all of them. And we like to think that we're usually shortlisted when for those carriers. But the average carrier, they're just doing the best they can. And if they're doing things the old-fashioned way, like we discussed, whether they mean to or not, whether they're aware of what's out there or not, it's a lot more challenging for them. They're really squeezed a lot for a lot of different reasons. So um, I think the central message is you can use security cameras, your access control, and all the technology that you install to really focus on having a really tight operation that will then produce free security, rather than thinking about it the other way around.
It reminds me of, in the technology world, everyone is talking about fraud and security. Don't open these emails. Don't listen to this robocaller. Make sure the person you're calling, we've seen organizations and carriers have to focus on that, but it almost sounds like from the physical security with your yards, terminals, warehouse lots, I wonder, want to get your thoughts. Do you kind of approach it the same way, where you have to say, not only do I need the right technology, but if I don't have a plan on how I manage it, if I gate guard has 300% turnover, if they don't know what to look for, you kind of got to have a plan, just like teaching your people not to open a fishy email. It's almost like you got to come up with a physical plan to help deter some of these fraudsters.
Yes, 100%. You're accurate on that. And yes, there are, kind of like, don't do these 20 things, and that'll help you a lot. But how do you enforce that day in and day out, right? How you going to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing? Um, uh, a good friend of mine, Norm Snead, said, um, he said, it would be great if you didn't have customers and staff. Business would be easy, right? But how do you manage everything, right? So I the advice I always give to everybody is talk to different vendors and get a ton of information for free, right? It costs uh, carriers nothing to pick up the phone and call us or other vendors and say, what do you do? What are other vendors doing? What are the best practices? Get a ton of information. And some of it you can just put in your back pocket and use it for later. Some of it may be actionable immediately. And you may want to, have a step-by-step approach. You can say, maybe I'll do this piece today and then I'll do this later. But there's a ton of information available these days. And it does take time. But if you and I think that's one thing that separates us from some of our friendly competitors is that we really think about your customers, we think about your insurance, we think about your safety and compliance efforts, we think about your operations, your YMS, the data integrity, and security. So we like to look at it all holistically, and we're always happy to share what we're seeing that works really well. So if you're a smaller carrier, a mid-sized carrier, and if you want to know what FedExes of the world are doing, or etc., we're happy to help and say, hey, here's what might work. Because everyone's looking for higher value loads, everyone's looking to manage their risk better, everyone's looking to lower their insurance. Everyone wants to sleep good at night knowing that things are taken care of and everyone's following protocol. But, it comes at a cost and you get what you pay for ultimately. But it's never a bad idea to pick up the phone, speak to people that do this and just get a ton of free information. And then you decide what to do then.
And kind of looking at one of the big things, proactive security versus reactive, for folks who are starting to finally, address the cargo theft. Are there any kind of tips or any kind of cool proactive measures that you've seen a lot of very successful companies implement, that can maybe give some ideas to some of these companies who have, like, oh crap, I'm just listening to this and it turns out I don't have a plan, and thank goodness I haven't had anything bad happen yet.
There's so many, but it's so site specific, right? And I wish that there was like one simple formula that it could apply to everyone. Uh, but kind of like high level is um, having security guards at the gate. That's going to be a thing of the past very, very soon. Um, we're seeing a tremendous increase in desire and ambition to repurpose guards at the gate. So we're seeing a tremendous uptick, not only because it's a saving, but because a proper uh, gate automation system will integrate into your YMS, TMS, WMS, CRM, whatever. So you can get really clean data from who's going in and who's going out. So that's a tremendous trend. And again, my friendly prediction is that there's going to be a very small percentage of logistics centers, both in trucking and logistics, intermodal, and also automotive. Anywhere where you see a guard and a guard shack, I predict that in 3 to 5 years, it'll be extremely rare that you'll still see a person in a guard shack. So it costs a lot less than what you think it costs, and it's tremendous value. And also, it's a good representation of your company, so that way, when insurance companies or your customers come, they can see that you have a systematic, standardized protocol for everyone entering and exit, everyone that enters and exits. So I would say that that's a one size fit all. You got to have a front door to your house. You got to have some protocols around who's allowed to come to your house, and that in itself is going to be a huge improvement to every single facility. So if I would if I would blanket it all into one big suggestion is get a front door to your house. Don't don't it's not an option, figure out a way to get a front door to your house.
Table stakes now. It's almost like how everyone has Ring cameras in their house, but you can just show up in some yards with a gate you can push open.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there is a lot of folks out there that still don't trust technology, and you shouldn't. You have to supervise them. We use a lot of AI, but we don't trust it fully. And for example, ChatGPT will almost never tell you that you're wrong because you are a customer of ChatGPT. So it will lean you in a way to make you think that you're special, and it'll try to, lead the horse to water. AI is a wonderful tool, and it can be used to bring things to your attention and to help you find information very quickly and suggest potential escalation methods. But the decision making, I think, when it specifically applies to billions of dollars of cargo, or hundreds of millions for some carriers per yard, you got to make the decisions. Humans should make those decisions, but AI should be used to escalate, orange flags or red flags up.
Make it as a friend and a tool, not as a complete replacement.
Correct, correct. It's wonderful what it could do for you, but you got to supervise it, and I don't think that's going to go away. Um, in the near term, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for everyone to get super comfortable with it. Now, are we talking, decades? No, I think we're trusting AI more and more every single day, but it is a transition that is happening. And I think once people start seeing confidence levels, because AI, a lot of times it will just tell you my confidence level on this is 80%, right? So you can choose a threshold of acceptable risk, and you can say, escalate everything to me when the confidence level is at 20%, 10%, 15%. Now, for security, some people might say, I don't want no risk, and I want human oversight at all times. And that's okay too. But you can lean in a little bit and start trusting the tools for some basic principles.
Well, this is great information, Mike, and I really appreciate you hopping on to talk about it. If folks want to learn more about Birdseye Security Solutions, what y'all are working on, what's the best way to get more info?
Just go to our website, or you can email me directly at mike@birdseye.ca. Happy to chat, happy to share what we've learned, happy to share best practices, and um, help you become the most secured version of your yard. So, whatever we can do to help, we're here for you.
Beautiful, Mike. We'll definitely have to catch up again soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's going to be a wrap for this keynote here, but don't worry, we have a lot more stuff coming up, additional fireside chats and everything else here at the Cross Border Logistics Summit. Stay tuned.